So good morning, everybody. I hope everybody can hear me properly.
Yes.
As Danny mentioned before, we are going to finish today with this framework to a scenario related to the grants and project management module. And tomorrow we will have a session, a reporting session, closure of the grant and reporting session. So let's review. We have a few time to complete everything. So let me review very quickly what we did on Thursday, and we will complete the exercise today, the scenario today. We have the following scenario. Umoja had an approved project, protection of civilians in Somalia, partially funded by two governments, Government of Australia and Government of Denmark. And there was an implementing partner in place that was UNDP, that was going to take part of some, let's say, activity within this project. So this is the scenario that we had. We had two donors, so the, let's say, implementation or configuration of this scenario in the system should be done with two resource mobilization grants, R1 grants, and one M grant to, let's say, record the pool expenditures related to this project. So we created one revenue internal order per resource mobilization grant to record this revenue from the donors. For each donor, we need one revenue internal order per donor just to create two receivables in our system, okay? And after the revenue internal orders were created, we performed the billing process because a sales order was automatically generated in the system per each one of them. So we track this revenue in our system. Then we created the main implementation grant, and we linked this grant to our resource mobilization grants. And the last step that we did was the creation of the unreleased budget. I just want to review with you the key points of this part that we did on Thursday. That is the creation of the M grant. If you remember, when we created the S grant, simple grant, we were doing the billing and the selection of the sponsor classes that would be budgeted in the S1 grant. Why? Because the S1 grant can record revenue and expenditures. In this scenario, if you remember, when we created each R1 grant, we did the billing, but we didn't select any sponsor class to be budgeted or whatever, because this part corresponds to the main implementation grant. So let me go to the system, because I just want to refresh the most important part for me. That is this selection of the sponsor classes, the IDC, all these concepts that maybe can be a little now, all of them messed together. So I will explain only this part, and we will continue with the exercise. Let me, I'm going to just display very quickly our M grant, the one that we created, to refresh what we did very quickly. Here we are. We created the M grant. The amount, where it is, the amount was the total amount coming from both donors. Each one was contributing with $1 million. So this amount was the total contribution coming from all donors. Let's go to this dimensions tab. If you remember, in this tab, we didn't apply any billing, any revenue internal order linked to this, because this part was done in the resource mobilization grants, not here. Here we will record only expenditures. So let's go to the dimensions and let's review very quickly what we did. We add our three grants, the external, the auxiliary, and the internal one. Why the auxiliary? Because we have an implementing partner in place. Grant needs to be linked here. We link our sponsor program in this part of the screen, and again, this part, the most important one, this one and the supported objects tab. In this part of the screen, we have to select the sponsor classes that will be budgeted in our process. This is always agreed in the, in the agreement with the donors. Any problem, Daniel? Can you hear me? It's breaking? Now it's better? Yeah, thank you. So, in this example, we decided that the classes that were going to be IDC relevant were contract and services, vehicle and furniture, and travel. But these are only the classes that are going to be IDC relevant. In this case, and this is very, very important, as we have an implementing partner in place, we need to add a new class that is called IP Direct Costs. Okay, let me show you IP Direct Costs. Travel, okay. Okay, I cannot find it, but I hope you IP Direct Cost. If we are creating a simple grant and we have an implementing partner performing part of the project or of the activity that is funded, we have to add this class always here. So these are the classes that we selected for IDC relevant. And we specified in here, overhead cost, the percentage that will be, let's say, cost of this program. So this is the percentage that will be applied as indirect rate for this sponsor class, for this, and for this. Here, you see, I have the IP direct class, the one that we selected in the other screen, and I changed the percentage for you to see clearly what was happening. Okay. More things that we have to take into consideration, this supported object screen. This screen allows us to select the sponsor classes that are going to be budgeted. So apart from selecting, these ones here, we had to add a couple of more sponsor classes. The PSC program support codes that will collect the total amount of these percentages for each sponsor class, and the AM1 IP indirect. We have, for you to understand, we have two sponsor classes that will collect extra costs in this process. The PSC XUN, I think is called, that will collect these percentages, and the AM1 IP indirect that will collect the costs that the implementing partner is going to charge us or to ask us, because they consider that the execution of this part of the project is going to cost, I don't know, in this case, $100,000 or $100,000 plus some costs that they will have to pay as well. So they will charge us this cost in this AM1 IP indirect cost, and we will have to take it into consideration and budget it. And these percentages for our existing classes will be tracked in the PSC class. Let me show you very quickly as well the creation of the unreleased budget, display budget, for you to understand what I am explaining. Yep. Let me display the unreleased budget document that we created. This is the one. So here we are. This is the unreleased budget document that we created and approved on Thursday. What do we have here? All the sponsor classes that we selected for budgeting. And for those of these classes where we selected IDC relevant, the system is calculating the percentage that we specified previously, and adding the whole amount in these PSC XPUN classes. Okay. We have these two classes. For this one, we added 3%. So you see 3%, this 3% is going here. These, let's say, are the cost, administrative fees, whatever that UN is paying to pass this part of the project to the implementing partner. There is a 3% that will come here. And this AM1 IP indirect cost, that is the cost that the implementing partner is asking us. Hey, we need $100,000 to perform this part of the project, and 7,000 extra to some cost that they will have. So this AM1 IP indirect cost is not a subject of IDC. So you see, the amount that we are going to budget is exactly the same. The net and the total amount is not IDC relevant because it's already a cost. I want you to understand this. So this is the split of the budget, and I want you to understand these two concepts, the PSC XUN, that are the costs of this program that we as UN are taking care of, and the IP indirect, that will be the cost related to the implementing partner. So having said that, any question regarding this point? Because no? I hope it's clear. Why do we have these two, let's say, sponsor classes to track support or costs? So let's go to the creation of the released budget. We have created the unreleased budget. Sorry, let me go back here, because there are many things that I didn't tell you that we did on Thursday, and it's very, very important to yeah, let me go here. We created our M grant, and very important thing, we have to link this M grant to a WBSC, a cost element that in this case is a WBSC, is a part or activity inside the project that we had previously created. So we will see again today how this grant is linked to this WBSC. But before releasing the budget, that is the step that we are going to do now, we have to link it to what this, let's say, a cost collector. So it's properly linked. We have unreleased the budget. Now we are going to release it. So let's go into the system, and let me log in as release budget user. Release budget user. Everybody's following what we did. So a user, let me T3 release budget. I think this is what. Yeah. I have to say, guys, that I already created the release budget because it's very long. I don't know if you remember from the S1. So I have created part of the release. Just let me. I held the document because I did almost the whole release of the budget, but I left only one sponsor class just for you to see. You see, this is already done. I did it offline because it's very long, as I mentioned, and I left the last line for you to remember how this needs to be done. For each of these sponsor classes, we have the total amount here to be released, and in this example, we are going to release the whole amount. As you know, the budget can be released partially, so but in this case, we will release the whole amount. For each line, you have to double-click on the line, specify the amount that is going to be released, and let's say this is the grant part, and adjust the funds part, the budget side of the screen, accordingly to this one. Let's go to the last one, because the previous ones have been done already for me. So let's go. We select the last line that is corresponding to the PSC XUN costs. And what do we want? We want to release the whole amount. So we will type here, okay, the amount to be released is the whole amount, 433.63. And now we have to, how are we going to distribute this budget in our, you see, in our budget or in our funds side of the system. So let's take the amount, copy, let me copy it. So this class, we have here 2 years because the validity of the grant comprises 2 years. But as we mentioned when we did it for the S grant, we are going to only release this money for the year that this is in the past. It makes no sense. We want to spend it during this year. If we had more years here, it could be split it as well. But in this case, we have only this year to spend this budget. So we will type here the amount. Very good. And now remember, distribution key corresponds to the month where this posting is going to be done. We are in March now. So we will select set 003, that corresponds to the 3rd month of the year, to March. And now we have to tell the system in which fund center, functional area, and funded program are we going to allocate this money. So if you remember, this wasn't working the other day, but today is working. That's why I wanted to show you. Usually, if you click here, the system will display the funded programs and the information coming from the sponsored program. Remember that when we created the expenses control object, in this case is WBSC, and we link it to our grant, we had to update this value in the sponsor program. So the system is going to the sponsor program and is checking these lines, these budget lines, and telling, okay, we have only one in this case. This is the funded program that the system automatically created when we linked our grant to the WBSC. So we will double click and the system is pre-populating all the information, okay? Now if we click enter, we have the green light here. So this needs to be done for each sponsor class. As I mentioned, we did it only for the last one. So we are going to check here. 2 warnings, no error, so pre-post. Do you want to continue? Yes. Let me check if the document held, because I held the document to show you the last part. And let me write down our 9194. Okay, 91943, whatever. Okay, so this is our release document, release of the budget. As I mentioned already as well, when we did it for the S grant, these amounts are coming from the unreleased budget. That's why it's very important that even if in the unreleased budget this money is not going to appear in any report or whatever, it's not a really pre-commitment or budget, I don't know how to explain. It's only a plan of how this budget is going to be spent. It's very important to take this step previously to the release because you will have already the amounts pre-calculated, okay? So let's go and let's approve this budget. Let me log in as an approver and approve this budget very quickly because you know very well how to approve documents better than me. So T3, the release budget approver, right now, TSR, PA. Let's approve this budget very quickly and we'll go to the creation of the P grant. That is the new part for you and I want to go through it very quickly. Let me, the inbox, here it is, 194, so I will approve it, review it and approve it. Remember, it's very important always to review that the distribution keys are correct, that everything is correct, and this funded program is properly okay. So let's approve the document and complete work item. Okay, so we have approved our release budget, and what is the next step? We have planned, when we distributed the budget, That part, $100,000 would go to our implementing partners, and 7,000 are the costs that this implementing partner will have to take care or will need to pay when they will perform the implementation of this part of the project. So now the missing step is to create our P grant, link it to the, let's say, to the part of the project that is going to be performed or implemented by them, link this P grant to our M grant, and transfer the money that has been budgeted for the implementing partner. These are the steps missing, all the steps related to the implementing partner, and we are going to perform them today. So let's log off, and we are going to be now grants management users again to create our P grant. It's the only type of grant that we haven't created yet in the system. So you have already seen how the S, the S, the R, and the M are created. So you will learn now how to create a P grant. TSG, this is the user, okay. So let's go. Which is the T code? You already know now, GM grant. Very good. So we are going now to create. Let's click on create. And we will, as usual, we will type the beginning of the ID of this grant. Very careful with this. Remember when we were creating an S grant or a R or M grant, we were putting here P1, sorry, S1 or whatever, 32 DDN, M1, 32 DDN, R1, 32 DDN. In this case, when we create a P grant, is 33 DDN. That is the auxiliary fund that is linked to the implementing partner. Okay? So we have to type this, the beginning of the ID of the P grant, and the grant type, that is P1. I will click on enter, and the system, you see, automatically generates. Let me write it down. An ID for this grant, 1047, and we are going to create. As you can see here, we don't need to define or to type a sponsor, because this is not thought to deal with the sponsors. This is only thought. This is, let's say, our grantee. So let's go and put all the information that we need. In the very beginning, we will put this authorization group 0009. This part is it's always the same. And the word type, this is according to the donor agreement. Okay. The name will be advanced to UNDP, whatever, or let's say UNDP advanced. Here we can say the same. Grant value. Which is the grant value? If we are coherent with the budget that we already released, remember that we had $100,000 for the implementing partner and $7,000 for the implementing partner costs. So the total amount that we are going to, let's say, give or transfer to our implementing partner is $107,000. Okay. Beginning of the grant. In this case, let's say that it will start this year, because we are going to transfer this part of the project this year, and we'll end. Okay. Very good. Let's go to the reference tab. In this case, again, external reference, UN001. This is the agreement number. CFA number, the level of availability control or check of, let's say ABC. In this case, let's select a different one. Fund grant, because this is for the implementing partner, but this is up to you. It depends on the degree of, let's say, of detail that you want to check this about, or to do this check of budget. Okay. Internal reference, UNDP, whatever. Let's select this one. Funding origin. This is done by multiple donors as well. It's coming for getting a framework too. UN grantee. This field is very, very important. As I mentioned, we are not going to receive money in this grant. We are going to give part of our budget to one implementing partner that will be our grantee. In this case, is UNDP. So let me, for the system should, This is the BP number of UNDP of our grantee. This is not, it's blue out, so let's select first the substantive office and the fund code. Again, very careful. In this case, the fund code is 33 DDN. Now everything is open. Let's not applicable, on these dates. So let's select the agreements, the 1st of January. Okay, these dates. These dates, remember, should be coherent with the agreement with the donors and whatever, or when the dates when we are passing this project, let's say, to our implementing partner. Funding agreement, started funding agreement and date. Okay, so here we are. This part is, remember, very important. 33 DDN is our fund code. Let's go to responsibilities. In this case, we don't need to have this unreleased budget approvers, but the system is defaulting them. Let's go to the budget tab and select the splitting rule. We will select here 001, life of the grant. This is always the same. Dimensions. This is very important. As always, this tab in all the type of grants. Which funds are going to be involved in this transfer of budget with the implementing partner? Only our auxiliary grant. In this case, we are not going to add neither the 32 grant, neither the 62 grant, only the 33 grant, okay? 33 grant, and we will say that is, is blue out again. Why? Because we have to select here the sponsor class series ID for the system to default all the values. In this case, it's a P grant, so we will select A P1. Press enter, and the system will default the information related to this. The cost sharing is already ticked, very well. A sponsor program, very important as well. We are going to link our sponsor program to this grant to our sponsor program. Remember that the sponsor program is the frame of the whole implementation. So all the elements have to be linked to the sponsor program. Here we are. Let me check that was properly added. Yeah. Protection of civilian in Somalia. Very good. So we have it. And now we are going to select the sponsor classes that are IDC relevant. When we create the grant for the implementing partner, and we have to transfer the specific budget for this, but the system is not going to calculate again, which are the costs, whatever, because the costs have been already defined at M grant level or S grant level in the case of an S grant. So we are going to say here that the IP direct is IDC relevant, but the system is not going to do any calculation now. It's IDC relevant, of course, because we have $7,000 that are the cost for the implementing partners. So we will say, okay, this class is IDC relevant, okay? Even if the system is not going to calculate the amounts again. So here we will just select this one. So this class will be IDC relevant. And we have to jump now to supported objects tab. Supported objects tab. Yeah. For which sponsor classes are we going to budget? Are we going to budget or to transfer budget for the implementing partner direct and indirect cost? Only these two classes. Remember that now this is a kind of island in the process. We are talking only about the implementing partner. So we are going only to, let's say, transfer budget to these two classes, the direct cost and indirect cost related to the implementing partner. Okay? So that's it. Remember, very important, I didn't check it properly here. Yeah, this is here. That you have to select it for your, you see I made a mistake. For your fund and sponsor program. This is not my sponsor program. I'm so sorry. This is a source of great errors afterwards. Yep, here I am, 100, here I am. See, I was about to make a big mistake. So for my fund, that in this case we have only 33 DDN, and my sponsor program, I'm going to say, okay, the direct and indirect cost for the implementing partner are going to be budgeted. Okay? They are already budgeted, are going to be transferred. We are going to transfer funds to these two sponsor classes. So this is done, and let's go to overhead cost. Be careful because now we have a new tab, recipient overhead costs. So in recipient overhead costs, we have to indicate to the system for our sponsor program and our IP direct class the percentage of the money that is thought or is calculated as cost. In this case, we have $100,000 as money to be spent and $7,000 as costs. So this is a 7% of the total amount. For, remember, my sponsor program and the IP direct class. So the 7% of this money, of this 107, are the costs of this transfer, of this implementation of the project, of this activity by the implementing partner. And remember, this needs to be typed in the recipient, that is UNDP, overhead cost records. Okay? So what else? I think that's it. Terms and conditions, very important. Very good. What in the treatment of interest, we are going to select that the money that will not be spent will be returned to us. In this case, we are the donors. UNDP is our grantee. So the money that will not be used will be returned to UN. Okay? And the reports are 1 and 2. Tomorrow we will see hopefully these two reports because we are talking about them in all the grants when we create the grants. But tomorrow we will see with Danny in the VI side of Umoja, we will see how these reports are generated, and you will see how important they are, because this is what our donors are expecting from us. Okay, so I think that's it. Any doubt regarding the creation of this P grant? I will review very quickly what we have done. Perfect. So general data and reference, as we already know, the information about the grant itself, the agreement, the numbers, the dates. Very important. In this case, we have to type the UN grantee, that is our implementing partner. In Dimensions tab, we will type the auxiliary fund, that is the 33-1, the sponsor program here, and the only class or unique class that will be IDC relevant, that is the AP1 IP, implementing partner direct. Supported objects, which classes are going to be budget related. In this case are the two classes related with the implementing partner. Overhead costs for the recipient, the 7%. This, as I mentioned before, this percentage is not going to be involved in any calculation. It's just information. Okay, from this $107,000, 7%, that's it, $7,000 will go to the indirect cost for the implementing partner. Okay, so you can type here this percentage, and at the very end, terms and conditions. So we are going to record our grant. The grant has been created, very good. And now the approver, just let me log off, will have to change the status to this grant before the money coming from the M grant is going to be transferred. So let's change the status to the grant. The approver is the T3. GAP 001. And we have to change the status of this grant until it is award operational. This is the right status. Let's type our P grant 1047. Let's edit it and change the status. Remember that is here. Application in process is the first status. Change status again. Here you see we don't have approved by UN and approved by donor. No, we have approved by UN and approved by implementing partner. These two steps can be done one before the other independently. Change status. Approved by implementing partner now. And the next step, or the next status, is award operational. So here we are. Our grant is award operational now. So let's save it. And here we are. We have our P grant, but this P grant is not yet linked. It's only linked to our sponsor program, but it's not yet linked to our, let's say, M grant, that is the grant that is collecting the whole amount of money coming from the donors. So which is the next step? As approvers that we are, we have to link this P grant to our M grant. Where are we going to link it? Remember, all the links or among grants are done in the M or S grant. In this case, as we have an M grant, because we are talking about one framework too, we are going to edit the M grant that we created previously. Sorry, here we are. Our M grant was 3, this one. Here we are. If you remember, we are going to edit it and click on relationships. If you remember, we already linked this M grant to our two resource mobilization grants, to our R grants. This is correct. So in this same M grant, we are going to link our P grant. Where? In the grants tab, relationship. Let's open this. The relationship that we want is a pass-through grant. Last Thursday, we selected main one with a resource mobilization one. This is not the case. This is a pass-through grant for the implementing partner. And here we are going to type our P grant ID. This one. Sorry. Or let me select it again. P grant is ending in 747. Valid from and valid to. Let's say from 1st of February, I think is the validity of the P grant. We type 1st of February 2019 up to 31st December 2019. Okay, so let's create this relationship to check, because the system is not giving us any feedback, to check that you did it properly. Open the grants folder, and before we only had these two. Now if you open it, you see we have linked our P grant to our M grant properly. Advanced to UNDP. So we are in a very good point now. We have our grants, the four of them, the M, the two R's, and the P, properly linked all together. So there is one step that we need to do when we are dealing with P grants. We have to map the objects of the P grant to the the classes of the P grant with the classes of the M grant. Why? Because later on we are going to transfer budget from this M grant to the P1. So the system needs to know from which classes are we going to transfer and to which classes are we going to transfer. So we are going to go back here. Let's save this relationship with the P grant, and we are going to link the sponsor classes where in this new button that we didn't see yet, Object Mapper. Again, remember, the linking of the grants among them is done in the M grant or S grant if we have a framework and a scenario. How to, or where to map the objects? Again, in the M or S grant. So let's click on Object Mapper. Here we are. And the system is telling us, okay, we have the incoming grant, that is the M1, which is the outgoing grant. It's our P1 grant, 47. We click on Enter, and this is a little bit crazy. You have to click here on this pencil. If not, you will not see anything. You see? Okay, I have put my two grants, and what is next? Click on this pencil, and the system will display all the, let's say, the sponsor classes, funds, and programs, and funded programs, sponsor programs that we have, and here the same. So very carefully, again, we have to link the classes properly. But here we have one advantage. Can you see here we have a filter that we didn't have before. So let's click on the filter. Yeah. And we are going to filter by our sponsor program, for example. Let's say, let me set filter. Yeah, didn't let me type it. Our sponsor program is OHA DDN 00100. I hope I did it. So it's here we are. So we have our sponsor program. We can filter by our fund as well. In this case, in the M grant, the fund, proper fund, was the 32 DDN. And now it's easier to find our classes, you know. So we have here filtered all the sponsor classes related to our fund and our sponsor program. Let's do the same here. Here we have only one fund, that is the 33 DDN, but anyway, let's filter. The fund is 33 DDN, and the sponsor program filter is the, I don't know why in the other screens we don't have this filter, but here we have it, so let's be happy. 00100. Okay, let's filter. Very good. So which sponsor class are we going to link? Remember that in our P grant, we only have two relevant sponsor classes that are the IP direct and the IP indirect. So these are the only two sponsor classes that we have to link to each other. How to link? Let's select it here. We have filters, so now we are sure that we are in the right place. let's look for IP direct and IP indirect classes. So select here the MA1 IP direct, and here you can see here is 32 and here is 33. This is correct. Okay? And because here we only have the 33 fund, we only added one, if you remember. So let's select it here and click on connect. Let's double check that is correct. 32, our sponsor program, our AM1 IP direct with our AM1, sorry, AP1 in this case, IP direct. So this is correct. And let's select the indirect. On indirect here, that is this one. And let's click on connect. Why are we doing or performing this step in the system? Yes, we are doing this because later on we have to transfer the budget. Let me say mapping assignment of sponsor classes to IP is not allowed. Wow. Sorry, because you see, very good that I'm making these mistakes. I'm not doing things properly. Look what has happened to me. This is troubleshooting. I link the classes and the system is giving me an error. What are you doing, lady? Mapping assignment of a sponsor class AP indirect to IP interest. You see? I didn't read it properly, so I link to a wrong class. So the system is telling me you cannot link these two classes. Okay, so I made a mistake. I will select this relation or this connection and will delete. Do you see this document with the minus? Delete row up. And now I will select indirect with the indirect that is here and connect. Sorry, and I was explaining before receiving this error that we are doing this mapping because later on we have to transfer money from the M grant to the P grant. The money will be from this, the budget that we released for this class. Only this amount of money will be transferred to this IP direct. And the money that we release for this class will be the money that will be transferred, the maximum amount that could be transferred from this to one. From this two to this other. Okay? So let's save our relationships. Hopefully, okay, no error now. Indirect, indirect, direct, direct. Okay. So let's go back and save our M grant. M grant is safe. Okay. So let's go to our diagram, not to lose track, and see where we are and what is missing. I don't want you to lose the track what we have. Remember, this was done before. We have the M grant. We unreleased the budget for the M grant and release it today to this part of this cost object in the project. Now we have created the P grant. We have linked it, not yet, this is the part that we are going to do now. We have linked it to the M grant. We have done the objects mapping. So there is one thing missing. Before doing the transfer of the budget from the M1 to the P1 grant, we have to link our P grant to one cost object that in this example is going to be a different WBSC element within this project. And once we have this done, we can transfer the budget. There is something missing as well. I'm going to do it right now before the 5 minutes break, because today I hope we can finish at 11:30, once we will finish the whole process. So let me update this overhead cost. That is the only step missing related to the P1 grant. And after the break, we will link this grant to one WBS element in our project, and once we have an expenses cost object related or linked to this grant, we can properly transfer the budget. So let's go and let's edit the overhead cost. When we, oh sorry, it's not this grant, it's the P grant. So let's go. Let me explain you what I'm going to do. I'm going to open our P grant. This step needs always to be done after the objects have been linked between the M or S grant and the P grant. So this is our P grant, and we are going to edit it. Remember that before we have touch or update the recipient overhead cost records. I forgot to show you before when we created the grant, but before this, not recipient, but the overhead cost records itself tab was blew out. It couldn't be typed. But once we have linked our grants, this tab can be updated. Let me press enter, you see, and the system is automatically deriving the class that will be, let's say, will have cost, and we have to type here this indirect rate. Let me type here 3% and try to explain you why 3% here. Do you remember when we created the N1 grant, we said, okay, for the class IP direct, we are going to apply a 3% of indirect rate. And when we allocated the budget, the system was taking this 3% as a PSC costs. So here is just for, let's say, for information for you guys. This, again, this indirect rate is not going to participate or to be part of any calculation. So in the overhead cost records, you have, okay, 3%. These are the costs that UN paid related with this implementing partner. I don't know, administrative fees, whatever. And in recipient overhead costs, we have a 7%, that is the percentage that the implementing partner told us, okay, we are going to take part of this activity within the project to take care, and we will have this amount of indirect costs. So this is the 7% in the recipient, and the 3% in our overhead cost records. This is the cost that we are, let's say, assuming. Okay? So, any doubt regarding these two percentages? In this case, again, in the P grant, they will not be involved in any calculation. They are only informative for you guys. The amount that UN is assuming, the amount that will be transferred to the implementing partner as their own costs. So, I think that's it. We have updated this, and we have our P grant created. So if you agree, we are going to just do a quick break of 5 minutes, yeah? And we will come back 11:05, and we will finish the process, how? Linking this P grant to a cost object and transfer it the proper budget from the M grant to the P grant. That will be the end of the process, okay? So, Danny, no question?
No, so far we have no questions and comments. So let's wait until
Okay.
the end of the break.
Yeah, maybe after one coffee, you will start. Yeah. Okay, guys. So see you in 5 minutes. Thank you. So we are back. We are going to complete this framework too. Open the diagram again. I'm sorry, I'm very heavy with the diagram, but I think it's very important that you know where we are. This is our framework tool. Let me display it, the whole one. So let's now, to finish this implementation in the system, link our P grant to one WBS element within the project. This could be linked to one internal order as well, but usually these grants are linked to projects, to bigger activities, you know. That's why we saw in the previous exercise that we did how to link a grant to an internal order for expenses, and in this one we used a project. So let's go to the system, and we are going to log in as a project approver. Let's say approver. The user can link a WBSC element of a project to one grant, but I'm going to log in as an approver because later on we will have to change the status of the project to be able, this WBSC, to receive, let's say, to start tracking expenditures. So before the status has to be changed by the approver. So we are going to log in as an approver directly, and we will link this. Let me log off. Let me open the project first, and I will explain you what I'm going to do. So I'm going to be now a project approver. That is 30. Remember that you have to complete the exercise in the 530 environment. The approver is the T3 project user and project approver. This is the one. Before the budget is transferred to this P grant, this grant has to be properly linked to one expenditures cost object. Okay, so let's go. Which is the T code to open a project or to edit a project? Create, open, edit is the CJ. Let me show you here. CJ20N. Let me open project. Open our project that it was SV-41. That's our project. Here we are. Remember that last Thursday we linked our M grant to this WBS element that was, I think it was information campaign. Let me check. How to check in the UN assignment tab. Yeah. So we link our M grant to this WBS element. To be coherent, because let's see or sum up what we are doing. We received some money from the donors to support one project or one activity within a project. And part of these activities that need to be done are going to be performed by an implementing partner. So, to have a proper example, we should link the P grant to one WBS element depending on the one that we link to the M grant. Does it make sense? I think it should be like that. In this example, it's not exactly accurate because we are going to link our P grant to one of those here, just for you to see how it is done in the system. But usually, the M or S grants should be linked, let's say, to a high level WBSC element in the project. For example, they are going to contribute to this protection of civilians in Somalia. So here we should link our M or S grant, and the implementing partner would take part of one activity within this big project. So sorry because we didn't select the proper or the most accurate example, but I hope you will understand just what we are doing. So let's say that, again, the M or S grant should be linked to one higher level WBSC, and within this, we should link the implementing partner, one to, for example, distribution cost or different activity. In this example, we are going to link it to the procurement of tents, to this WBS element. The way of linking is exactly the same. It doesn't matter that you are at the level 1, that in the level 4, or here even. You just go to the UN assignment tab and put your grant there. So it doesn't matter which WBS element you are linking. The process is always the same. In this case, the procurement of tents. Let's go. And here we are going to link our P grant. How to link our P grant? Very easy. You just type here, again, let me repeat. In UN assignment tab, your P grant, P1, 47, our sponsor program. Is this one? Yeah. And very important, don't forget the country of the beneficiary, because the system is compulsory. We need to type this. Okay. Again, I explained it when we linked the M grant to the WBS element. We have here this budget control WBSC. This is related to the grant layer of Umoja. This is related to the budget layer of Umoja. So here the system is pre-defaulting the level 1. Let's say the budget is going to be linked at the highest level, so the consumption is more flexible. You can consume it through the whole project. Okay. The grant, in this example, we are going to link it to this specific WBS element. So these are two different things: the grant, let's say, layer and the budget layer. As I mentioned before as well, once we add one budget control WBSC to our project, the system is automatically generated a funded program with this same ID. That's why when we updated our, let me open. I don't know if I can display with this. No, okay. Sorry. When we were linking our budget control object to our sponsor program, we were typing this budget control element or funded program. Okay. So we have linked our P grant to this specific activity within the project. Typing this, we will leave this as it is. We can go here to a level of detail that we want, but in this case, our recommendation is to leave this at project level always and link your grant to the specific activity that you want to track. Okay. So let's link it and let's save it. Very good. Open again, and now the project approver has to change the status of the project to have this WBS element ready to be budgeted or track expenditures. So how to change the status? Let's select our, this is the one, procurement of tents. Yeah. So let's go to edit status, user status. Edit status, where it is, user status, set and pass on. This is a way of changing the status. And the first status is under budget review. So the system is telling, okay, these stages these statuses within a project need to be changed in the right order. It happens the same that with the grants. First you say it's in process, then it's approved by UN, approved by implementing partner, or approved whatever, and then award operational. You have to follow the right order. In this case, it happens the same. If we go here to the basic data tab, you see, under budget review, and now we will do exactly the same: edit status, user status, set and pass on, and ready for release. This is the right status that this WBS element needs to have. Let me accept. Ready for release. I mentioned as well, but that just as a quick reminder, if you change the status to one WBS element at a higher level, the status is for all its children will change accordingly. In this case, we are changing just the status of a last level WBSC element, so the status is only changing for this specific activity within the project. That is the procurement of tents. So let's save it. Okay. Very good. And let me log off, because now the next step is the update the sponsor program to link this funded program to our sponsor program, but in this case, it's already linked. Let's go. So let me log in as grants, yes, as a grants creator, because I want to show you the sponsor program. No, let me log in as my user. But the grants creator or the grants approver should have access to display the sponsor program. Okay, so GM program. This is our sponsor program. Okay, remember that in budget transfer, you see, here is where we said, okay, this funded program is going to be linked to our sponsor program. In this case, we didn't change it, so the funded program is going to be the same, so we don't have to add it, because we already have the sponsor program related to this project. Okay, so it's done. So last step, very important as well, to transfer the budget to our P grant. Transfer the budget. So to transfer the budget, we will have to log in as a released budget user. This is a kind of release of budget, but it's really, in reality, it's a transfer from the M grant to the P grant. So we should be logged in as grant management release budget user. I am going to remain with my login, that is my own user, and I have access to do this. So GM budget release. This is our T code. You have it here. And now, remember when we were doing the release of the budget, we were selecting process enter. In this case, it's not an enter, it's a pass-through transfer. Very important. So pass-through transfer, and the origin of this transfer. Which is the origin? Which grant? Our M grant. So here we will type our M grant 397. GM doc type is pass-through grant budget. Pass-through grant budget. And the description, let's say that this is a transfer to UNDP. Okay. Budget version 0. So here we are. And what do we have? You see, we have only two classes involved, the IP direct and the IP indirect. And as we link them properly, these sponsor classes, the M grant and the P grant, we link them properly before the system is defaulting. You see, this M grant and P grant. This is slightly different to the release of the budget. Why? Because here we have to transfer. We have to say we are going to take minus one amount from the M grant and transfer it plus to the P grant. So let's start. Which amounts are we going to transfer? If you remember when we did the original budget distribution, when in our M grant, we decided that for the implementing partner direct, the amount to be budgeted was 100,000. Okay. So we are going to move this amount from the M grant to the P grant, same amount. Let me type it sorry. Okay. So here we are, and as you can see, this is not, let's say, balance. So let's double click on the first line. This is exactly the same as we did before. This part is the same. So 100,000, we have 2 years. In this case, the validity of the P grant was only through this 2019. So this year is already passed. So we are going to put the whole amount here. Okay, missing information. Distribution key, the month of the posting date. This is the third month, that is March. And this is coming again from the sponsor program. So the funded fund center, functional area, and funded program are coming automatically populated here. So we click on enter and the system is balancing this first line. Second line. This is the amount that we are going to transfer. Where are we now? In the P grant, AP1 direct. Okay, you see here. Here we have only 1 year. Remember that the validity of this grant was only 2019, and we have to do exactly the same. Sorry, amount. Very good. The system is asking us again the missing information. So third month, and here we can go to the sponsor program, the funded program that we are going to use. So here we are. We have transferred from our M grant to our P grant. This and for the IP Direct sponsor class, $100,000, and arrange or amend our funds side of the screen properly. And what is missing? The IP Indirect. The IP Indirect are 7,000. You remember well when we budgeted it in the M grant. So we are moving again from the M to the P. Let's double click on the first line and the same. We are going to take it from 2019 the third month of the posting date, and sorry, yeah, here we select the right combination of fund center, functional area, and funded program. This we could have several values here because you know, as we saw when we were explaining the project, one project can be funded by different you know, fund centers, functional areas, so we can several funded programs. In this example, we have only one to make it easier for you. So let me press enter. What is happening? That is not balanced yet. Sorry, of course, it's not balanced. Why? Because I want to move 7,000 and here I type 100,000. As the system is telling me this is not balanced at all. So the amount is 7,000. Yeah, now it is balanced. And let's go to the last line, the one related to the P. Again, remember here we have the transfer from to. So in 2019, 7,000, distribution key, month, the posting date, and here the right combination that we will select it from the ones specified in the sponsor program. So here we are, and now we have our document balance. Let's check document, good, warnings, and we can pre-post it. I'm not going to pre-post yet because I want to know if you have any doubts on this specific step. It's only a transfer from the M to the P, and how are we going to transfer this money? How it was budgeted when we distributed the money coming from the donors into the different sponsor classes, and this was done at M grant, let's say, level when we created the unreleased budget and later on we released it. So this is the last stage. Well, we should approve it. I will approve it afterward offline. And let me open the diagram again just to be sure that we cover everything. Yeah, here we are. And quick review before finishing. 2 donors and 1 project in place. We created the sponsor programs and 1 resource mobilization grant per donor in order to track the revenue coming from the donors. Okay? So there was a sales order involved for each air grant. We did the billing process to get the receivables in our system. So we created later on the M grant and link these 2 air grants to this M grant. In this air grants, we were recording revenue. In this M grant, we will record expenditures. Okay. So we created an unreleased budget, a plan on about or how this money is going to be distributed through the several sponsor classes. We link this M grant to 1 cost object for expenditures. In this case was a WBS element within this project. And then once it was properly linked, we released the budget. Very important, before releasing the budget, this money has to be properly billed, received in, let's say, in the system, and the cash should be available too to avoid cash errors. So we released this budget to this M grant, and then we had an implementing partner in place that was going to perform some activities within this project too. So we link this P grant to a different, let's say, WBS element in this project. It could be the same as well. And we link this P grant with this M grant and map the objects, the 2 classes, the IP direct and IP indirect costs. Okay. Updated the overhead costs, that these are only informative. They will not be involved in any calculation. So what was the last stage? Once we had everything properly linked, to transfer money from the M grant to the P grant, to have it available for the implementing partner, and to start tracking the expenditures related with the part of the implementing partner, the part that this implementing partner is taking care. So at this stage, the grant execution, let's say, begins. We will track expenditures here and here, different expenditures, and once the activity or the project has finished, the grant needs to be closed. And this is what we will cover in tomorrow's session, the closing of the grant and how these grants are reported to the donors, the consumption, the expenditure we have to report to the donors during the whole process. And moreover, we will see some internal reports that we can use for our, for our daily work to check if everything is correct and we are doing what we were supposed to do according with the donor agreement. Okay? So guys, any question related to this, the framework 2 process? We have seen the creation of the 4 types of grants, creation of revenue internal orders, expenditures internal orders, creation of a project, WBS elements within the project, how to link everything. I think we have learned a lot during this this refresher. So it's a lot of information, and of course, if when you will review everything or when you will do the exercise, you have further doubts or problems, just come back to us. On Thursday, we will have an open WebEx session, because just in case you want to ask something else or you are doing the exercises and you are stuck, you don't know how to continue. On Thursday, this will be on Thursday. So if you don't have anything else to ask, Danny, please. Yeah.
Yes. So far, we have not received any question, but what I can tell you is that students were attentive to all your explanations, because when you try to release more budget and you
that the one expected.
we had a couple of comments in the chat saying that that was a mistake. So
wow, very good.
So it's kind of like an indicator for us that you guys are following the sessions. I think it was a very comprehensive scenario. So also, all the credit to you. It was a very, very good explanation, even though that the process is long and sometimes a bit complex. So although tomorrow we'll do the final closure and reporting, I think that the scenario that you proposed was actually Thank you from my end.
Thank you, Danny. Thank you. And something else, sorry, I have to tell you that in the exercise, this exercise that we have done in the system, there is a typo with the amount to be transferred to the implementing partner. I apologize because it was just a copy paste. I copied the wrong amount. You will receive today the exercise with this amount corrected, so please disregard the previous one, just in case you want to follow. And moreover, if you are not going to do the exercise because you don't have time or you don't want, just save this script for your records, because you have all the detailed explanation of what we have done here. So it can be a very good guide or a job aid. You have job aids as well, very good ones, but this is just more information for you to have in case you need to create all these structures in the system. Okay, so if you don't have anything to add or to ask, nothing, Danny? Shy, you are shy today. It's Monday. Tomorrow we will see. So enjoy the evening and see in the afternoon, and see you tomorrow.